Happy Monday to you, fellas. Book author, dating coach AlanRogerCurrie. I want to talk about a couple things. Talk about a couple things on my YouTube portion, then I'm going to transition into my Patreon exclusive portion. First off, I'm getting ready to tell a story that I haven't told probably in about 2 years. But I've told this story at least 4 or 5 times since I've been on YouTube. About an incident that happened in Las Vegas when I was a featured speaker at one of Sasha Daygame's direct dating summit conferences in March of 2012 in Las Vegas. Because I had a guy recently write me and call himself criticizing me. He started off per usual. I've mentioned him a number of times. A lot of guys, when they want to criticize, they'll start off saying something positive or flattering. Like, I like your books, or I like most of your videos. You seem like an intelligent guy. But, and then they go into their criticism. And same here. This guy, he said, Alan, I do respect you as a dating coach. And I think you give a lot of rock solid advice. But he said, I do have one issue with you. He said on some of your videos, you'll emphasize that you have ethics when it comes to being a womanizer. You'll say, compared to other womanizers, you're an honest, ethical, non-manipulative womanizer. But he said the reality is this. He said womanizing in general is unethical. He said when you really analyze it, womanizing itself is unethical. He said just the fact that you're attempting to engage in sexual relations with a woman without offering her any type of long-term monogamous commitment, without offering to treat her like you're the special lady in your life, and do nice things like give her flowers, go out on dates with her, etc. And he said, I've heard you say you don't even take women out on dates when you want casual sex with them. So you don't even take women out on dates, but yet you expect women to give you full access to their vaginas. He said that alone is unethical. He said that alone is unethical. So Alan, with all due respect, you're no more ethical than a womanizer who, say, lies to women or manipulates women to get them in bed. Because he said, in my strong opinion, any guy who's a womanizer is operating as a womanizer is unethical to some degree. He said, I believe all womanizers. I believe any guy who's trying to get just casual sex from a woman is engaging in unethical behavior. Insert dog face here. Now, in this guy's partial defense, oh boy, if you watched an episode, there's an episode of this young brother who I've been on his live streams many times, but not anytime recently, but definitely starting with, I think, February, March of 2020, I've appeared on this guy named Bernard Riley's live streams. I think the last time I was on there was about maybe 5 or 6 months ago. Yeah, last time I was on there was probably about, I think March, maybe. Yeah, I think I was on there March of this year was the last time I was on there. Anyway, one time I was on his show and there was this guy, I don't know his real name, but his pseudonym at the time was MGTOW Dictionary. MGTOW Dictionary. He was probably the last guy who tried to say something similar to what the guy who wrote me recently said. Yeah, we were on there and Bernard Riley was interviewing this guy and he was criticizing dating coaches in general, which a lot of guys do. He was criticizing dating coaches in general, and Bernard Riley specifically asked him, he said, okay, I'm going to throw out a few names and you can tell me what you think of them. He threw out about 3, 4, 5 names, and one of the names he threw out was my name. He said, well, what do you think about AlanRogerCurrie? And the guy said, he said, I don't have a major problem with AlanRogerCurrie, but he said, if I do have one issue with AlanRogerCurrie, it would be that he prides himself on being straightforwardly honest and non-manipulative. And Bernard was like, yeah, exactly. He said, well, honestly, that's bullshit. And Bernard Riley was like, how so? And he said, I'm slightly paraphrasing, this might not have been exact words, but this is essentially what he said. He said, well, just the fact that he's pursuing women for casual sex, period, makes him a manipulator, even if he's generally being honest with the women. He said, just pursuing women for casual sex, period, in my opinion, is manipulative. He said, you have to be manipulative to some degree to get women to have casual sex with you. He said, you can't get a woman to have casual sex with you if you're 100% honest and 0% manipulative. He basically said, you can't get a woman to have casual sex with you. He said, in order to get a woman to have casual sex with you, you have to be dishonest to some degree and manipulative to some degree. He said, that's a fact. And then we basically got into an argument from there. We got into a heated argument from there. But yeah, he was the last person I remember who said something similar to what this guy wrote me today. That's what this most recent guy wrote me and was trying to say. It's basically like just pursuing casual sex in general is a manipulative endeavor. I vehemently disagree with that. This actually contributes to one of the reasons why I wrote my book, The Beta Male Revolution. See, without getting too lengthy, here's the deal, man. Before the 1960s, it was inappropriate to propose short-term and or non-monogamous sex to a woman. That was considered highly inappropriate. Yeah, prior to the 1960s, it was considered extremely disrespectful, insulting, offensive, and inappropriate to propose any form of short-term and or non-monogamous sex. Basically, it was offensive to propose any sex outside the context of marriage. Before the 1960s, it was considered totally socially inappropriate, insulting, offensive, disrespectful to propose having sex with a woman outside the context of marriage. Yeah, if you did that before the 1960s, there was at least a 40-50% chance that a woman's father or big brother would look for you to beat the shit out of you. And I'm not even like joking or exaggerating. Yeah, some women's fathers or big brothers, man, would come looking for you if they found out that you proposed having sex with their daughter or sister outside the context of marriage before the 1960s. But that, again, this is one of the reasons why I wrote the Beta Male Revolution, is to point out that, see, Starting with 1960 and going on to the early to mid 1970s, that's when things changed in society. It became, without getting into a long, detailed digression, it became more acceptable to make sexual advances at a woman outside the context of marriage. Yeah, it became totally acceptable and appropriate because of the introduction of the birth control pill, because of the second wave of feminism, the influence of the second wave of feminism, probably most prominently what was called the free love movement or sexual revolution. I actually, on the side note, came across a book on Amazon where some woman argues that's the worst thing that happened to society. Yeah, a woman wrote a book where she says the free love movement / sexual revolution was the single worst thing to happen to dating and relationships. I found it. I haven't read the book, but I saw the title and I read some blurbs about the book. And then the fourth thing, the legalization of abortion. But anyway, yeah, man, by no later than the early to mid 70s, man, it was appropriate to hit on women for casual sex. That was no longer considered socially inappropriate or disrespectful or insulting or offensive. Unless you hit on a nun, a Catholic nun, or something similar. You know, even today, if you would hit on a Catholic nun for sex, that would be considered disrespectful and offensive because she's a nun. But a woman in general, it is no, beginning with the early to mid 70s up until now, it is no longer considered disrespectful, insulting, or offensive to hit on a woman for casual sex. So that's number one. Number two, what's unethical about casual sex? If you're honest, particularly if you're honest about the fact that all you want from a woman is casual sex. I mean, seriously, explain it to me like I'm a third grader. Explain that to me like I'm a third grader. What is unethical and or manipulative? What is unethical and or manipulative about pursuing a woman for casual sex if you're upfront, specific, and straightforwardly honest with women about the fact that all you want from them is casual sex? I put a audio clip or video clip rather on my YouTube community page where this woman said that. She said, I wish men would just tell me if all they want to do is fuck. And it's the key thing she said, because she said, then it gives me the decision, which it does. She said, then it gives me the decision to say either, yes, I'm interested, or no, I'm not interested. See, that's the benefit of my Mode 1 approach for women, is it gives them the decision-making power. They can say, yes, I'm interested in engaging in casual sex with you, or no, I'm not interested in engaging casual sex with you. And because they have the decision-making power, there's nothing unethical about it. There's nothing misleading or manipulative about it. And I think for anybody to suggest otherwise is being ridiculous. They're just talking shit, but they can't back it up with anything factual. They can't back it up with anything intelligent and factual. See, in order to be, for your pursuit of a woman's sexual companionship to either be one of these two things, if not both, unethical and or manipulative, here's when your pursuit of sex with a woman is unethical. Is related to what that woman said on the video clip, is when you're not really giving them any type of decision-making power. They don't have the power to say, yes, I'm interested in engaging in casual sex with you, or no, I'm not interested in engaging in casual sex with you. For example, you getting a woman real drunk or real high, and then you just physically take advantage of her, which of course is date rape. See, that would be an example of behavior that's both unethical and manipulative, because you're not giving a woman the opportunity to give you verbal consent. By giving her substances such as cocaine or heroin or a bunch of liquor, there's no way in a sober mind that she can give you verbal consent to engage in casual sex with her. If a woman can't give you verbal consent to have casual sex with her, then the behavior you're exhibiting is unethical. Plain and simple. If a woman is not in position to give you verbal, not nonverbal, I've already done 3 or 4 videos about, that's over with. That's over with now. Nonverbal consent don't mean shit. A good example, of course, of nonverbal consent would be a woman allowing you to unbutton her blouse and take it off. A woman allowing you to take off her panties without her saying anything. That would be an example of a woman giving you nonverbal consent. In the 21st century, that's almost non-existent. That's almost non-existent. So keep that in mind, fellas. If you're relying on a woman just to give you nonverbal consent, that woman can still charge you with date rape. That woman can still charge you with date rape. That's facts. That's not opinion. That's facts. If you act on nonverbal consent alone, a woman can still charge you with date rape. If you want to protect yourself, keep that in mind. The only thing that matters in the 21st century is verbal sexual consent. Verbal sexual consent. Yeah, you really don't have the green light to put your dick in a woman's mouth, pussy, or ass, unless that woman specifically says, I want to suck your dick, or I want you to fuck me, or I want you to fuck me in the ass, or whatever. A woman has to say that. A woman has to say that. Now, I always wait for women to give me verbal sexual consent before I proceed with being physical with them. Always. I always wait for women. I've even videotaped some women who I've been with, they know this. I've even videotaped women giving me verbal consent. Yep. Not all the time, but a lot of times. Like, before I get ready to fuck a woman, I'll take out my smartphone and make her give me verbal video consent. Yeah, I've done that with at least 15 to 20% of the women I've been with sexually. I recorded them on audio and or video giving me verbal consent to protect myself. To protect myself. So yeah, man. So that's the only way your pursuit of sex can be unethical, man, is if you're not giving a woman room to give you verbal sexual consent with a sober mind. Sober mind. There's nothing manipulative. Same to be an ethical versus unethical, manipulative versus... Again, I've been covering manipulative on my last 2, 3, 4 videos, man. Manipulative, plain and simply, is when you're giving a woman the impression that you want one thing, one type of companionship, when you really want a totally different type of companionship. That's when you're being manipulative. For example, the easiest example of being manipulative is when you're giving a woman the misleading impression that you want to engage in long-term, emotionally profound, strictly monogamous sex, when you really want to engage in short-term, non-monogamous sex. That means you're being manipulative. That means you're being manipulative. I'm not manipulative with women. There's nothing unethical or manipulative about just the pursuit of casual sex itself. Now, I did write an article for O'Shea Duke Jackson's website, the Negro Manosphere, back in, I think, 2018 or early 2019, called, Is the Pursuit of Casual Sex Shallow? Is it shallow and superficial? And then I said, yes, it is. So that's one argument I will accept. If someone was to say, Alan, I think the pursuit of casual sex in general is a shallow and superficial endeavor, I would actually agree with that. I would agree with that. I do believe casual sex is shallow and superficial. There's nothing emotionally profound about casual sex, and that's by design. Casual sex is lust-based sex. You're engaged in sex purely based on lust, or in the case of some women, and even a few men, for the sake of quick monetary compensation. Or materialistic gifts for some women. But yeah, it is superficial. So that's a criticism I will agree with. That I do believe casual sex in general is representative of a shallow and superficial endeavor. But as far as an unethical and or manipulative endeavor, no. There's two types, I've always said, there's two types of womanizers. There's honest, ethical, and non-manipulative womanizers. Those are the only womanizers that I consider to be true players. Players. That's the only womanizers who deserve the title of player. Matter of fact, if you read my community post, I was doing my live stream on Saturday morning. And one of my Patreon subscribers, he asked me that. He said, Alan, don't you get irritated when men refer to themselves as players, even though they're liars, manipulators, cheaters or adulterers, tricks? And I gave him a face like, not so much a dog face, excuse me, but more so a face of, that's a gross understatement. For those of you who don't know, and I said this in the community post, that's a minimum of like 50 to 60% of the reason why I became a book author and a dating coach. Real talk. That's no less than 50 to 60% of the reason why I became a book author and dating coach. Among other reasons was because I was tired. As you all know, I'm a very pedantic person. I'm incredibly, almost annoyingly pedantic, which means I'm very meticulous on how people use and define terminology, certain terms. I'm very meticulous on that. Just like I did that video recently where I was talking about guys describing something as gaming women when I said it's really they talking about manipulating women. Don't sugarcoat the shit by calling it gaming women. You're fucking manipulating women. Just say that shit. And I feel the same way about the term player, man. That might be the single biggest term related to male-female interactions that when it's not defined in its proper way, I get extremely annoyed and irritated, man. You are not a player if you're a liar. If you remember, I'm coming back full circle. If you remember, when I first got on YouTube, I remember this specifically. It was either my second, third, fourth, no later than my fifth video. One of those four. It was either my second, third, fourth, or fifth video ever after I first started doing video podcasts on YouTube back in April 2017. I did a video called I don't remember the exact time, but it's to the effect of most guys do not really know what it means to be a player. Here's again the simple definition of a true player. If you got, say, 3 different sexual lovers at the same time, 3 different sexual female lovers, and each of your 3 female lovers knows that you're fucking at least one other woman, all 3 of your lovers know that you have at least one other lover and they're cool with it. They accept your program. They're cool with it. Then that's when you're a player. That's when you're a player, man. Not including tricks. Yeah, not including tricks or sugar daddies. They don't count. Sorry. Trick sugar daddies don't count. Even if they're honest, they don't count because they paying for pussy. That don't count. I'm talking about if you're a womanizer. There's a difference. I did a video about that. There's a difference between being a womanizer and a trick or a sugar daddy. I'm talking about if you're a straight up womanizer. In other words, you're not paying for pussy. If you got 3 sexual lovers that you're not paying for, and all 3 of your lovers know that you have at least one other lover and they cool with it, that's when you can call yourself a player. That's the only time you can call yourself a player. Honestly, that's the only time you can call yourself a player. If you, on the flip side, if you got 3 different lovers and each of your 3 lovers believes firmly either one of these 2 things, either firmly believes or assumes, firmly believes or assumes that they are your only monogamous lover. Each of your 3 lovers believes or assumes that they are your only monogamous lover. You're not a player, man. I don't care what your best friend told you were, what some of the guys in the hood told you were. You ain't no player, man. You ain't no player. You know, that was on a side note, 2 things related to my passion about that. One time, as most people know if they listen to my videos, I almost got into a fight related to debating this issue. Yep, in January 2006, I was doing a speaking engagement in Chicago. I don't want to go through all the details. I just skip over all the miscellaneous details. But yeah, me and this dude, big dude too. He's about 6'3", 6'4". And he kept calling himself the top player pimp in Chicago. But yet he, by his own admission, he admitted that all of his lovers thought they were his girlfriend. And his argument was, it started off, he came to me and said, man, he said, man, this whole straightforward honesty shit, he said, I ain't feeling this shit. You gonna fuck up the game, man. You gonna fuck up the game. And I was like, how so? How am I gonna fuck up the game? He said, man, this straightforward honesty, man, it's bullshit, man. If you a player pimp like I am, I'm the top player pimp in Chicago. And he had this little dude next to him, like it was his personal hype, man. His personal hype was like, yeah. He's the top player pimp in Chicago. He's the top player pimp in Chicago. And he said, yeah, man, one of the reasons I got all the hoes I got is because they each believe that they my girlfriend. And that's how you're supposed to run things. And I said, dude, if you consider that being a player pimp, I said, you don't know what the fuck you talking about. I said, you ain't nothing but a liar, a cheater, manipulator. I said, actually, if you want me to be real honest, you're a verbal coward. Then he had this bad habit of using his finger. You ever been around people? I've noticed a few people do this. Men mainly, not so much women, but men. When they're trying to make a point, they'll tap your chest. And he kept saying, hey, man, he kept tapping my chest. And that's when things got kind of tense between us. I basically said, hey, man, you got one more time to tap my chest, man. I said, real talk, you got one more time to tap my chest, man. And then he looked at me with a look, of course, like, oh, you know, like, what you gonna do about it? And I stepped to him and I gave him a look like, we'll see, motherfucker. And then my brother and somebody else who was there had to step in between us, man. Because I was ready. I was ready to go to, even though, again, he was taller than me, a little bit bigger than me, I was ready to go to blows over this shit, man. I don't back down from nobody. So I'm mad until it was like, nigga, come on with it then, motherfucker. But I told him straight up. One thing I did have the balls backbone to tell him. I told him straight up. I said, dude, you ain't no player. You ain't no pimp, man. I said, you a punk. I said, you a verbal coward, man. I said, if you gotta lie to women and make them believe that they're your girlfriend and all the fuck, I said, you was the furthest thing from a player or a pimp. And then not in it, he just waved his hand at me and walked up like, man, whatever, man, whatever, man, whatever, man, whatever, fuck you, man, whatever, whatever. Then another thing related to my passion about this particular topic, this is how I actually got started on AskMan.com. Most people know that was probably arguably the first real major message board I started posting on in fall of 2002. And that's what caused me to start posting on AskMan.com, man. was I didn't like how a lot of guys and even a few women were describing a player. They were conflating liars, manipulators, and cheaters, adulterers with being a player, man. And I was like, that's not a player. Plain and simple, I came on and wrote this long, detailed post where I basically said, man, if you're a liar, you are not a player. If you're a cheater or an adulterer, you are not a player. If you have any woman you're having sex with that thinks she's your only lover, she firmly believes or at minimum assumes that she's your only lover, you're not a player, man. That is not no player shit, man. A true player, again, for the upteenth time, is when all of your lovers know that you fucking at least one other woman in addition to them. All of your lovers know that you fucking at least one other woman in addition to them. That's when you can call yourself a player. That's the only time you can call yourself a player. Now, that's the only time you can call yourself a player, man. And that's why, if you read my community posts, that's why I have such issues with Rollo Tomasi's newest book. I wrote a review for his ebook version, and just yesterday, Sunday, I wrote a review of his audiobook. Because I thought, to be truthful, I thought he was going to take my name out of his audiobook version. I didn't think after me criticizing his ebook version, I thought he would have sense enough to remove my name and my Mode 1 approach from his audiobook version, but it's still in there. My name and my Mode 1 approach is still in there. So I wrote a review of his audiobook version. And that's the main thing I said. You can go to community post. I got a link to my review. But yeah, man, the biggest thing I said in a nutshell in my review of his audiobook is that I said, Rollo is trying to redefine what a player is. If you read his book, he basically believes that any guy who has multiple lovers is a player. In a nutshell. He basically believes any guy who has two or more lovers at the same time is a player. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. That is not a fucking player, man. It's just like that guy I mentioned just a couple videos ago. There was this guy on some nondescript guy was on a video that my follower sent me, and he said, all players know this fact. The specific word that bothered me was when he used the word fact. He said, all men who are players know this fact. And he went on to name two things. He said, number one, in order to be a player, you got to have a lot of money, be making a lot of money, be driving a fancy car, and wearing high quality, expensive clothing. That's bullshit. None of that's true. I've been a player without none of those things. So that's bullshit. Second most thing, and almost even worse, was he said all players know you have to lie to women to get them in bed and sell them a dream. Sell them a dream. Another bold-faced lie. That's bullshit. That's for weak motherfuckers, man. Can't stand your weak motherfuckers, man. That is weak game. That is not good game. That's weak man's game. That's game for guys who have no balls, no backbone. Weak. Verbal cowards. Weak. Quote me on all of this shit. That shit's weak. Not only do I not respect you as a player, I don't respect you as a man. Quote me on the shit. Shit's weak. And that's what I told that guy in Chicago. Told him right and dead in his face. I told him his game was weak. And I was ready to fight him over the shit. That's how passionate I am about it, man. I was ready to fight this motherfucker over that shit. Over our disagreement on what a player is. I was ready to come to blows with this dude. I did not back down from telling him his game was weak. Rambo. I'm sorry, man. Again, as I mentioned, I said a lot of this on my Saturday live stream, man. I just don't respect, man. I don't respect any guy, again, who tries to refer to themselves or refer to somebody they know as a player when that guy is actually either a liar, a cheater or adulterer, a disingenuous and misleading manipulator, or a trick or sugar daddy type. None of them motherfuckers are players to me, man. Anybody falls in one of those 5 categories, they ain't no player, man. Anyway, I'm going to tell this story real quick. This will probably be I'd estimate my 5th, 6th, or 7th time telling this story since I've been on YouTube about the subject going back to ethics. I was in Vegas for a direct dating summit. And one of Sasha Daygame's videographers, the guy who was doing a lot of video recording of the event, it took place in this big mansion that Sasha had rented out. It wasn't like a public facility. It was actually somebody's residence. And within this mansion, there was this big long table. I'm sure you've seen them in movies where they had these big long dining tables that could fit probably like 12 people, if not 1 or 2 more. It could fit probably like a table that could fit like 12 people. 5 on each side and 1 at the head at each end of the table. So I'm sitting on one end of the table, and the videographer, he came and sat down on the opposite end of the table. And then about 5 guys who he had been in conversation with sat down at the table. And first he gave me a compliment. He said, "Hey, Alan, man." He said, "Number one, it's good to meet you in person. I had heard a lot about you." I said, "Thank you." And he said, "But I do have my criticisms. I do have my criticisms, mate." I said, "Okay, what's your criticism?" He said, "There's a lot of things about your Mode 1 book." He said, "Number one, I read your book." He said, "There's a lot of things I like about your book. But," he said, "I have one major issue with your whole Mode 1 approach philosophy." I said, "What's that?" He said, "Mate, come on, man." He said, "There's no such thing as ethics, morals, values, and ethics when it comes to getting laid." And then a few of the guys who were at the table start chuckling and basically nodding in agreement, like, "Yeah, man, with all due respect, man." He said, "Really, mate?" He said, "You're trying to incorporate," the problem I have with this whole Mode 1 approach thing is it seems like you're trying to incorporate morals, values, and ethics into the pursuit of casual sex. And he said, when it comes to getting laid casually, there's no such thing as morals, values, and ethics. And then the guys just start laughing. They start laughing, like, treating it like that was like the dumbest thing in the world to try to have ethics when it comes to getting laid. And I said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, really." And I just gave him a look for more than a few seconds. I just stared at him. I said, I'm just looking at him. I said, "You know what? You're right." And he looked surprised. He said, "Oh, you agree with me?" I said, "You're right. Let's call him Daniel." I don't remember what his name was, but let's just call him Daniel. I said, "Okay, Daniel, this is what I propose. Me and you go out today in Vegas and find us 2 14-year-olds and bring them back here and fuck the shit up." And he was like, "What? Mate, that's crazy. 14 years old, that's underage." I said, "What? You got some age-related ethics? And he looked at me like, oh, you're a clever one. Oh, you're a clever one. I said, okay. Maybe that was too extreme. Why don't we go out and find two women that are no younger than 21 years old? And this is what we'll do. While you distract them with entertaining conversation, I'll go put 2 ecstasy pills in their drink, or vice versa. I entertain them with conversation. You put 2 ecstasy pills in their drink, and then we'll bring them back here and fuck the shit up. He was like, mate, come on. Surely you're being facetious. I was like, what's wrong? What, you got some ethics related to using drugs with women? And then he just kind of looked at me like basically, I see what you're trying to do. And then I added on one more example. I can't remember what the third example was. I mean, the first one was underage women. And the second one was using drugs to get a woman in bed. I can't remember what the third one was. I think it was like, let's go out and meet some women, and we each tell them, give them the impression that we want to propose marriage to them within the next year or so, and then we bring them back here and fuck them. And then at that point, he finally said, okay, touche. What was funny, man, each of the guys that were initially there, was about roughly 5 guys sitting at the table. When I started destroying his argument, one by one, they kept getting up and walking away. They were no longer his cheerleaders because they knew I was shredding them to pieces. Here's the bottom line, man. Even if you don't have the same exact ethics as I do, most men, not all, but the vast majority of men do have some ethics. They might not have the exact same ethics as me, but I remember, if you remember, I did a passionate video, I think it was back in 2018, where I said, quit being half a gangster. Quit being half a gangster. Don't ever come to me and say, hey, man, I don't care about no values, ethics, none of that shit. I don't care about no ethics. You don't care? How come you ain't out raping bitches then? How come you ain't out date raping women then? If you don't care about ethics, don't be half a gangster. Don't be half a gangster. Don't tell me you ain't got no ethics. If you ain't out here regularly fucking underage women, you ain't regularly out here getting women drunk and high to fuck them, you ain't regularly out here physically forcing women to have sex with you, then don't tell me you ain't got no ethics, because you do. You might not have the same ethics that I do, but you have ethics. We'll go down the list, and I'll tell you, we're going to go down the list of my evaluation of ethics. And we'll see. Here's what I listed 8 things that you're about to see that are representative of you having ethics if you're not willing to do these 8 things. There's up to 8 things that if you're not willing to do, that means you have ethics. Now, the first 3 things, I don't really consider. Here's the thing. If you're willing to do at least 3 of these 8 things, the first 3 of these 8 things, then that does mean you don't have no ethics. If you're willing to do the first 3 of these 8 things, then that means you don't have any ethics. If you're willing to do 4 of these things or 5 of these things, or I should say not willing to do. If you're not willing to do a minimum of 4 of these things, of these 8 things, then that means you have some degree of ethics. You just don't have the same ethics that I do. So let's start with ethical evaluation number 1. These are all ranked from most unethical to least unethical. Most egregious to least egregious. Let's start with the most egregious one. Attempting to physically coerce or force a woman into engaging in sexual relations with you against her will. To me, that's the most egregious, unethical form of behavior with women when it comes to trying to get sex from women, is to just try to physically coerce or force a woman to give you sex, give in to your sexual advances against her will. If you're in that category, quote AlanRogerCurrie said, I hope you burn in hell. Hope you burn in hell, man. I want to watch you on video burn in hell. I'm not even joking. I'm not even joking. I want to watch you burn in hell. You know, I've never done that. I can honestly, sincerely say, I've never tried to force a woman to have sex with me against my will, against her will. If anything, in my lifetime, I've had at least 3 women that one time criticized me for being not physically aggressive enough. Yeah, 2 in high school and 1 in college. I remember 2 in high school and 1 in college told me I wasn't physically aggressive enough with them. Like, I remember one time I took a woman to my junior prom, a junior in high school, and after the prom was over, we tongue kissed, but I didn't really make no move to fuck her. And then she kind of looked at me in the car and started smirking. And I was like, why are you smirking? She said, wow, you're not going to even try? I said, try what? She said, you're not going to even try to fuck me? And I was like, no. I told her, I said, no. Because number one, man, she was a good girl she came from a family that I knew. I knew her parents. And I wasn't going, you know. So I said, no, I respect you. And she just kind of laughed. She said, well, that is for you. She gave me a compliment and credit. She said, for you not to try is the gentlemanly thing to do. But she said, I just expected you to be more physically aggressive in trying to. She said, I don't know if I would have agreed to have sex with you anyway, so I'll let you know that. But I thought that you would at least try. And I said, no. Yeah, that was my junior year in high school. And I had at least 1 other woman in high school and 1 woman in college. Yeah, I never tried to physically just take a woman's pussy against her will. That's rape. I mean, basically, that's rape. That's literally what rape is. So if you're willing to do that, that does mean you have no ethics. If you're willing to do that with a woman, or you've already done that in your life, you have no ethics. Number 2, giving a woman drugs and or alcoholic beverages in an attempt to circumvent her ability to provide you with verbal sexual consent. I've never been into that either, man. But I know a lot of guys in my life who have, including some of my close friends, some of my fraternity brothers. Again, in their partial defense, in the 60s, 70s, and the first 2/3 of the 80s, it wasn't really illegal to do that. It was still unethical. It was always unethical to give a woman drugs or alcohol to get her to have sex with, but it was never illegal. It didn't start becoming illegal until the very late 80s or early 90s. That's when that began being categorized as date rape. As date rape. But I've never been in favor. I've told all my clients multiple times, I don't believe in having sex with a woman for the very first time she got drugs or alcohol in her system. That's real talk. I don't believe in having sex with a woman. Now, if this is my 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th time having sex, then maybe. But the very first time, I never believed in having sex with a woman for the very first time she got drugs or alcohol in her system. Particularly in the 21st century. Again, man, that's date rape, man. Whether you want to accept that or not, it's the truth. That's date rape. So if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to give a woman drugs or alcohol in order to get them to give you some casual sex pussy, you have no ethics. And I don't respect you. I think you're scum of the earth. Give me your number, I'll tell you directly. On to number 3. Aggressively making attempts to engage in sexual relations with a woman that you know for a fact is not a legal age to give you proper verbal sexual consent. Again, that's not just unethical, but in most cases, that's illegal. depending on what city you live in, what region or state you live in, what country you live in. Now, what the age that determines whether a woman is of legal age to give consent ranges from city to city, state to state, region to region, country to country. Some cities it might be 18, some it might be 17, some it might be 16. But that's one thing if you don't know, like if a woman lied to you and told you she was 19 when she was actually 16, So I give you a little pass if a woman lied to you, if you don't know. I'm talking about you know ahead of time for a fact that a woman's not of legal age to give you consent. That means you have no ethics. All three of those first three on my list, if you're willing to do one or more of those first three things, that means you have no ethics, man. That means you have no ethics. And I'm getting ready to sound, as some people say, self-righteous, whatever. To me, you scum of the earth, man. I don't respect you, man. I don't respect any guy that indulges in one of those first three things. I don't respect you, man. You have no ethics. You have no ethics. Now, moving on to number 4. Giving a woman the blatant misimpression that you have a desire to propose marriage to her at some point in the near or distant future, just to score casual sex. I already told you, there's at least 2 countries that's actually not just unethical, that's illegal. Denmark. In the country of Denmark, that's not only unethical, but it's illegal. India. In India, that's not only unethical, that's illegal. You can be locked up in prison for that. Yeah. They have a law against a false promise of marriage. False promise of marriage in order to get a woman to have sex with you. Yeah, there's at least 2 countries where that's not only unethical, but that's illegal. Yeah, man. I haven't known too many guys personally who indulge in that, but I've probably known at least a handful. But yeah, man, if you're telling a woman that 99% chance you're going to propose marriage to her in the future just to motivate her to give you some pussy, then as you get the pussy, you're like, nah, not going to marry you. That's fucked up. I ain't that desperate for pussy. Moving on to number 5. Number 5. Giving a woman the blatant misimpression that you have a strong desire to remain faithfully and indefinitely monogamous to her because she is your wife, fiance, or long-term girlfriend, but you actively plan on cheating on her behind her back if given the opportunity by other women. Yeah, basically, you're a cheater or an adulterer, man. I have no respect for cheaters or adulterers. I told you, man. Not only have I told guys on the internet that I disapprove of that and I don't respect it, I've told some of my closest friends in life, like guys who were like real close to me, like guys I went to high school with, guys I went to college with, guys who were in my fraternity. I've told them to their face, man, that I don't respect that shit, man. I don't respect cheaters and adulterers. I don't respect men who blatantly cheat on their wives, fiancés, and girlfriends behind their back. Now, some guys are trying to argue. They say, well, Alan, you've had sex with women who were cheating on their husbands, fiancés, and boyfriends, so you're one-sided. No, that's not true. And I've said that before. Even when I used to have sex with women who were unfaithful, I never respected those women. Just because I had sex with them didn't mean I respected them or defended their right to cheat. Most of the women, I told them to their face that they was a no good, cheating ass slut and bitch. And I've talked about that on previous videos. At least half of the women that I fucked that were at the time I fucked them were cheating on their husband, fiance, or boyfriend. I told them directly. I said, you are no good. Remember that story I told about the woman who was sucking my dick and her boyfriend called her on her cell phone while she was sucking my dick? Right after she got off the phone with her boyfriend, I told her, I said, you a no good bitch. Exactly what I told her. I said, you a no good bitch. Because I really picked on her because at the end of her conversation with her boyfriend, she said, "I love you." And she said it with just so much fake sincerity. She said, "I love." And I asked, I said, "How can you tell your boyfriend you love when you're about to resume sucking my dick and I'm gonna come in your mouth?" And she's like, "I do love my boyfriend. I do love him." And I just kept giving her a look like, "You're a no good bitch." I even told her, I said, "You're a no good bitch." And she just was like, "Well, that's your opinion." And then she went back to sucking my dick and I came in her mouth. No good bitch. Moving on to number 6. Giving a woman the blatant misimpression that you have a strong desire to enter into a long-term, emotionally profound, strictly monogamous romantic relationship with her when you really are only interested in a few episodes of short-term, non-monogamous casual sex with her. I've gone in on a lot of guys on my YouTube channel who fall into that category, man. Again, plain and simple, I don't respect that, man. That's what's known as emotional manipulation. I just covered that actually in my very last video. I covered that. Yeah, that's emotional manipulation. I'm not into emotionally manipulating women to get them in bed. I think this shit's fucked up. It's not illegal. It's not illegal, but it's definitely unethical. Yeah, the first 3 or 4 things on this list are not only unethical, but they're illegal. Then there's some things on this list that are not illegal, but they're just unethical. And number 6 is one of them. That's unethical. I'm not down for it. I never endorse it. I never condone it. I think guys who do that shit are straight up beta males with no balls, no backbone. Moving on to number 7. Giving a woman the subtle but yet misleading impression that you want to spend a significant amount of time with her both sexually and non-sexually when you really plan on spending time with her only for sexual enjoyment and orgasmic pleasure and sexual satisfaction while spending very little, if any, time with her non-sexually. Now, a lot of Mode 2 guys will fall into that category. A lot of guys who exhibit Mode 2 behavior fall into category number 7. I don't respect that, man. It's not illegal to do that. But I just don't respect it, man. Again, man, whenever I've had a fuck buddy, I told them that all they were to me was a fuck buddy. See, that's the difference for the upteen time. That's the difference between a fuck buddy and a friends with benefits partner. Fuck buddy is a woman you only spend time with for sexual activity. A friends with benefits partner is someone you spend time with both sexually and non-sexually, but you do make it clear to that woman that your relationship with them is going to be non-monogamous. So you are straightforward about letting a woman know your relationship with him is going to be non-monogamous. So I give you points for that. But yeah, friends with benefits is you plan on spending time with the woman both sexually and non-sexually. Fuck buddy, only sexually. Most of the women I've had non-monogamous sex with in my life have been fuck buddies, as opposed to, I've only had like 4 or 5 friends with benefits partners where I spent time with them both sexually and non-sexually. The vast majority of my non-monogamous lovers have been fuck buddies, where I only hooked up with them just to fuck. I didn't spend no time with them non-sexually. And finally, number 8. Giving a woman the subtle but yet misleading impression that you want to become a woman's financial provider, i.e. sugar daddy or something similar to a sugar daddy, when in reality, once you engage in 1 or 2 episodes of sex with a woman, you no longer have any interest of being financially and or materialistically generous with that woman ever again. Now, a lot of guys would argue, what's wrong with that? You know, I know the broadcast radio host, Tom Likas. He admitted he used to use that game on women. He would give a woman a misleading impression that he was on the verge of becoming that woman's sugar daddy or some sort of financial provider, but then after he fucked the woman 2 or 3 times, he would just leave her alone. Some would argue, well, and come on, man, you cherry picking now, man. That ain't, what's wrong with that? I still think that's unethical. Not in a real major way, but I think that's unethical. I've never done that. As you know, I tell women straight up that I ain't gonna spend no money on them. I tell women straight up. Every woman I've ever had casual sex with, I told them straight up that I wasn't going to spend no money on them. I have never tried to impress a fuck buddy with money or material possessions. My attitude is, how much money you going to spend on me? That's how I was when I was younger. My general attitude was, how much money are you, the woman, going to spend on me for my dick and my non-sexual companionship? Again, I said in a video not too long ago, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I pretty much operated like a male gold digger when it came to dealing with women. I was always about, how many dates are you going to treat me on? How many bills of mine are you going to pay? That was my cocky ass attitude. I never offered to spend no money on a woman. Fuck that shit. So yeah. So here's what I'll say again. If you, out of those 8 things I listed, if you're willing to indulge in one or more of the first 3 things on that list, that means you have no ethics whatsoever. That means you have no ethics whatsoever. If you're willing to engage in behavior number 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, if you're willing to engage in behavior item 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8, what that means is you do have, or I should say not, I keep saying willing to engage in, not willing to engage in. If you're not willing to engage in one or more of the behavior items, starting with behavior item number 4 through behavior item number 8, that means you have some ethics. It's just that your ethics might not exactly be like mine. If your ethics are exactly like mine, you're not willing to engage in any of those 8 forms of behavior. If you're not willing to engage in any of those 8 forms of behavior on that list, that means your ethics are just like mine. That's when you can say your ethics are just like mine. But, yeah, a lot of guys will try to say they have no ethics, man. Yeah, you don't. If you're willing to do behavior item number 1, behavior item number 2, or behavior item number 3, that means you have no ethics, man. You're an unethical motherfucker, man. You're an unethical bastard. You're an unethical bastard, man. And you're going to get karma. I believe in karma. Karma's going to get you. It's going to get you. It's going to come back on you. Believe that. I believe that. You might not believe that. I believe that. Karma's going to come back on you. And I'm going to be celebrating when it does. I'm going to be celebrating when it does. Hell yeah. That goes for you women too. I ain't letting you women off the hook. If y'all exhibit behavior that's a combination of immoral, unethical, highly manipulative, you're going to get what's coming to you. And I'm going to celebrate when it happens. I'm going to celebrate when the shit happens. Fuck all you manipulators, male, female. Fuck all you liars, manipulators, cheaters, adulterers. Fuck all y'all, man. Now, in my Patreon exclusive portion, some guys got confused, speaking of all the stuff I've been talking about. Some guys say, hey, Alan, so do you actually approach women and specifically take the time to tell them, well, hey, Lisa, I'm not interested in long-term, emotionally profound, strictly monogamous sex, but my only interest is short-term, non-monogamous, casual sex. Do you go through all that? Wouldn't that take away from you being smooth and seductive? Well, here's the thing. In the world of professional sports, there's a thing that they always say there's 3 types of coaches. Coaches who teach do's, coaches who teach don'ts, and most coaches teach a blend of both. What to do during the game, what not to do during the game, and a combination of both. When it comes to the issue of how I go about letting a woman know that all I want from her is casual sex, most of the time, it's more about what I don't do or say than what I do or say. It's what I don't do. I'll give you one or two examples before I go into my Patreon exclusive portion. That would be one. And most people know this about me. I don't invite women out on dates if I know all I want from them is casual sex. I never, ever, ever, like not even one time in my life. I never invite women on. If I meet a woman and I know from the time I meet her that 99% of my interest is just having casual sex with her, I will never invite her out on a lunch date, dinner date, movie date. I'll never invite a woman out on a date. And most of the time, that will lead a woman to ask me, so what's your interest with me, Mr. Currie? It's obvious you don't want to take me out on a date, so what is your interest? And that's when I tell them, I just want to fuck you. I've told many women that in my life. I just want to fuck you. Y'all remember the infamous Sharon, the woman I called Sharon? That's how I approached her. When I approached her, man, she was a person I specifically told her. I never forget. I specifically told her when I met her, I said, I introduced myself. I told her my name. Then I said, you're a beautiful, sexy woman. I said, I want to add you to my roster of fuck buddies. That's exactly what I said to her. I said, I want to add you to my roster of fuck buddies. And of course, she had, I wouldn't say she had a negative reaction, she had more of a shocked and amused reaction to that. Like, oh my God, I don't believe you just said that. And I was like, you believe it? Yeah, but one simple thing I'll tell a woman is I'll say to a lot of women, all I want to do is fuck you, which leads them to start asking me questions for further clarification. Like the woman from Verbal Seduction Story number 1. I told her that. I even made it more specific to that night. I said, all I want to do is fuck you tonight. I said, the only reason I'm sharing your company tonight is because I want to fuck you. I basically told her, I said, I don't want to interact with you beyond tonight. I just want to fuck you tonight. If you remember my story about when I was at my book signing event in 2006 in California, I told a woman that. I said, all I want to do is fuck you tonight. After this weekend's over, I don't have any plans on talking to you. I just want to fuck you tonight. But yeah, a lot of times it's what you don't do and what you don't say. Really, it's a combination of both, but it's almost more so what you don't do and what you don't say. And I'm going to go into more detail about that in my Patreon exclusive portion.